I don't want to be stuck when I'm done with football, want to have a plan.
What qualities gave you that green light that were like, you know what, I'm going to write these guys a check?
I want to get to know these people beyond, whether they can make me money or not. My brother's a founder. I've learned from him the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, and it's important for me to see how they deal with adversity. Because it's hard. Just like sports, it challenges you at all times.
You think Michael Jordan cared about work-life balance? It's for athletes.
It's your entire life. Yeah, you're building something.
There's two types of investors. There's one that invests in something that is already working and needs gasoline for the fire, and there's one that is investing in the people. What part of the fence are you on these days when you're, thinking about your angel investments?
That's something I ask myself a lot.
It's about time, man. Welcome to the Athletes and Assets podcast. I'm your host, Noah Lack, and I bring on your favorite athletes to chat about entrepreneurship and the business they're building. Today, we got a special guest. My guy is running through the AFC East right now. 5-year NFL defensive end Casey Toohill, a former San Diego native, second team All Pac-12 at Stanford, who's doing a little angel investing. We'll talk a little entrepreneurship, what's going on in his world. But right now, Casey is, we just finished week 8, I believe. And this podcast may get released after week 9. But right now, the Bills are off and running. But Casey, man, first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Noah. Excited to be here.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Let's skip to small talk, man. All right. You got a crazy defensive line there with the Buffalo Bills. Von Miller, Daquan Jones, and what catches my attention, Casey, being the athletes and entrepreneurship guy, and these guys are all doing crazy stuff. I mean, Von Miller, he opened up a poultry plant. Daquan Jones has a VIP lounge, a tech company. What don't you guys do over there in Buffalo? I mean, it's a pretty it's a pretty eclectic group of guys.
Yeah, I mean, great group of guys. Probably one of my favorite rooms I've ever been in. Just really, really good people, and I think that's what the Bills do very well as an organization. They bring in, really good people who care about the right things, care about football, also have identities outside of football, but are just good people, and I'm really. It's a privilege to be part of this organization.
No doubt. 6-2, man. Doing well in the AFC East.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. You got to just keep going, man. The NFL, every week, you got to go 1-0 because it's just so challenging to beat anyone. It's challenging to win. So got to keep the main thing, and just 1-0 every week.
I know we're going to, I know this is more of an entrepreneurship focused podcast, but you'd make a good coach, I feel like. You got the coach voice. Has anyone told you that?
It's funny. I was just doing a little coaching. Some of the Bills' wives and significant others have a flag football league. So I was volunteered to do some of that, and it was a lot of fun. It was pouring outside, but I had a whistle and everything. So it's very timely that you say that because I was like, hey, had a good time coaching.
How do you have time to coach the Bills' wives flag football league during the season?
Great point. We had today's one of our off days, so off day.
Tuesday's off day in the NFL.
Still went into the facility. Yeah, but we just had a quick little practice and just kind of a meet and greet with our players. So yeah, it wasn't too time consuming. It was a lot of fun and great to meet some of the other wives on the team.
Do you mind me asking what position does your wife play on the flag football team? Like, how are you coaching?
She's on the other team. I'm not coaching her, and so there's 2 teams are going to play. I know I think that was on purpose. We don't coach our wives, so I don't know. She probably won't tell me. She doesn't want to give away the secrets of the team.
Is that to preserve the relationships or what?
I could be. I don't get paid enough to deal with that. So
okay.
So we'll see. But maybe she'll give me some secrets on their game plan so we can strategize.
Oh, so you actually don't know what position she is?
No, I mean I'm assuming there's probably just going to be quarterback, receivers, and then everyone will play defense. So we'll see where she lines up, I guess.
Okay.
She'll have to tell me.
Have you seen a game? So has the game started yet for that?
No.
Okay.
We play in a few weeks. I think we only play once, but we're practicing right now. We're getting to know the girls, getting to talk some strategy. So it'll be good.
When it gets really, really cold in Buffalo, are they all showing up to the games?
Dude, great question. I assume so because of how strong the fan base is here, but it is my first year here, so not exactly sure about the weather at all. Right, I've never been in this environment before, so I'm excited to see.
Would you ever think about stopping at a tailgate pregame to see if these guys are actually jumping on the tables on fire?
That's funny you mentioned that. Absolutely not, because of how early I have to get to the stadium, and
Oh,
also
you get
just
there
I think
before the tailgate. Got it.
yeah, the appearance of doing that. But it is funny to think about, and maybe sometime in the future when I'm not playing, I'll stop by and see what the hype's about.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, man, absolutely. Well, but kind of going back to your teammates, man, like there's certain teams in the NBA and the NFL where the players they all seem to be doing amazing stuff. I kind of referred to
Yeah.
what Von Miller's doing and his in the investing space and also his poultry plant. Once again, I did some data, Casey. I don't know if you've seen on the defensive linemen in the NFL, and I coined them the most eclectic and well-rounded position in sports in terms of off-field endeavors.
Interesting.
Um,
Interesting. Okay.
so from venture to tech startups to hunting, farming, fashion, the defensive line has been the most diverse group. Everyone, like, we have guys
Hmm.
making consumer products. We have guys doing non-alcoholic beer, which
Sure.
that blows my. Like, first of all, non-alcoholic beer, like, come on, man.
I love it.
You
I
like
love
you
it,
like
dude. I love
non-alcoholic
it.
beer?
I love it. Athletic. What's it? Athletic Brewing.
Brewing, yep.
Yeah, that's a great, dude. Don't have you tried it,
I haven't tried it. No.
dude? There's a market for it, dude. I'm telling you. I think people might be out on alcohol. We'll see. You never know. I mean, for me, like I tend to not drink in season, so something like that fills a need, and which makes sense. Like the athlete sees that, like they're like potentially the market for it, and they're like, why not? Why not try it?
I
But I get what you're saying. I know, in principle wise, it's weird,
like
especially calorically.
I have no problem with not doing alcohol. Like that's great. But like if you're not going to drink alcohol, why don't you just drink Gatorade or something? Like why does it
Yeah,
have to
that's
be
fair. That's fair. Yeah, I get it. But
is
I like
athletic,
what Athletic Brewing is doing. I'll say that.
is it in your fridge?
You know what's funny? It happens to be because my wife got some for a tailgate for when my family came in. But I
Okay.
wouldn't normally just drink it, but it's a good thing to have.
Yeah. Okay, okay. Well, but chilling back to the main point, Casey, is like my thesis is defensive linemen have a reputation, maybe to the casual viewer, of being giant, big, intimidating guys. And off the
Sure.
field, they have a certain window in the off season to show their persona and do other stuff before they put on
Yeah.
the helmet and people don't recognize the face as much. And
Hmm.
so my thesis has been like, I think you guys go not go out of your way, but are so interested of other stuff, not only to prove it to other people, but to yourselves that like because people view because you guys are sort of the big intimidating guys on the defense, um, there's almost like a comfort, a self-esteem thing where it's like we can do
Mm.
other stuff and like I want to try doing like weird stuff and getting involved in different endeavors and also
Yeah.
salary sometimes gives you the flexibility to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. I think also you spoke about the off-season window. I mean, we have a certain amount of time where we are technically truly off work, right? You have to train and stuff still, but that gives you a window of time where you can experiment with things beyond football and kind of build your identity, which I think is a great point you made, right? People want to see, what is there besides football? Because there's only so many hours in the day you can think about football, train for football. I mean, your body breaks down after a while. So it really gives people an opportunity to explore these other aspects of their identity. And I think it's great that people do different things. Not everyone has to do investing, not everyone has to do, stuff in real estate. It's great that people have branched out, and I think that just makes it more interesting. It's just really interesting to talk about what different guys are into, right? Like I have teammates that are really into like outdoor stuff and like archery and stuff, and that's what's so great about the NFL. There's so many different personalities, coexisting and coming together to work towards a common goal, which I think is pretty rare.
And also I feel like the D line is like always the funniest position group. Like everyone like guys are characters because they just don't like they're just interesting. They're just full of personality. Maybe they
It's always, yeah, exactly. It feels like you've been in a D line room, honestly, because I think that's very, very astute. Like we have every D-line room I've been in, there's been so many personalities and really mostly just great dudes. But it's really, really fun to be around. It makes coming to work fun.
And that sort of this sort of just sort of full of life, character, personality. I think that influences the diversity of endeavors amongst the big D line guys. So
I like this thesis, man.
yeah,
I think you've even thought more deeply about this than I have, but I really, really appreciate that you have because that gives me kind of an interesting perspective. Yeah, I think you're onto something.
yeah, man. I'll share with you the newsletter after we're done with our pod. And if you're watching this,
Perfect.
man, please subscribe to the newsletter. It's called The Arena.
Perfect plug.
Yeah.
I love it.
Also subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. But yeah, man, what are we? You're 8 games in, man. Halfway.
Yeah.
No, 17 games now, right?
I mean, basically,
Yeah.
yeah. It's close enough.
Did your bye week happen already, or is it?
No, that's coming up. We got a few weeks, which is perfect. I think it's at the perfect like midway point, closer to the end of the season probably. But I've had late buys, I've had early buys, and I think where we have the buy this year is good timing.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And is that before or after your matchup with the Chiefs?
Well, I think it's right after. I think it's the week after.
Okay,
So that's interesting.
I can't wait for that matchup, man. I mean,
Yeah, it's going to be a great one.
You can't look past next week's opponent, but the Bills Mafia's already been talking about it.
Of course, yeah. It's always a big one against the Chiefs, especially here.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And I know Josh Allen will be ready. I was doing some scrolling, Casey, and
Perfect.
yeah, like we all do. And your quarterback, Josh Allen, did you realize he is a venture partner?
No,
Yeah.
I did not realize that.
So
It hasn't come up, surprisingly.
Josh Allen is a partner in Forma Capital, which
Interesting.
it has a venture structure, maybe a little more growth capital, but investing in health, wellness, and more of the consumer brands of the world,
Right.
which is pretty crazy to me. This is where we are now.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. I've seen that trend, especially with stuff I sometimes get approached with, and I see other guys, what other guys, especially the bigger name guys in the NFL, get approached with are, these structures where they do promotion, what their value add. That a lot of these firms, it seems like the value add to their portfolio companies is like, hey, you have, this big time Tom Brady quarterback to promote your products. They have a big social following. They can help, drive sales, expand your market. So I always think that's a really interesting kind of niche that some of these fofirms kind of fit into. And I don't know if that's exactly what Josh's venture fund that he's a partner at does. But I've seen that trend, and I think that's very intriguing, especially with entertainers and athletes.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, Josh is listed as a general partner. So actually,
Wow. Yeah, I'll have to talk to him about that. I appreciate you flagging that because that has not come up in our conversations, but hey, now it will.
let me give you a little portfolio of their portfolio just to get you
Okay.
aware.
Yeah.
So Los Angeles Mad Drops Major League Pickleball team.
Okay.
Chubby Snacks. I'm
Interesting.
seeing a lot of like healthy granola stuff. This is the
Sure. Yeah, you said consume. Interesting. Okay.
Block Snacks. It's kind of a juice brand.
Okay.
Bravo Sierra, which is deodorant, body wash, consumer brand.
Okay.
And then I'll go one more. Flaus. Flaus. Flaus.
Okay.
Feel good flossing. Sonic vibration.
Oh, sweet.
Flossing.
That sounds like something I need. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, it makes sense. And yeah, now I have something else to talk to Josh about besides football. So that'll be a good conversation. I appreciate you putting me on there.
Yeah, I'm actually I've never heard of these companies, so I think it seems like this firm is taking
But it makes sense.
earlier bets in the consumer branch, which I respect.
No, totally. And I think that's where these athletes have those value add, right? You get Josh Allen to potentially promote you, to talk about you, to use your product like early on. I mean, I feel like that just absolutely can drive sales.
No doubt, no doubt. at this point for me, Casey, I feel like there's two types of um, investors. There's one that
Mm,
in the venture ecosystem. There's one that invests in something that is already working and needs gasoline for the fire, and there's one that is investing in the people early on.
the vision.
The
Yeah,
vision,
yeah,
the
yeah.
um, you know, where do you, and there's no wrong answer. What part of the fence are you
Sure.
on these days when you're thinking about your angel investments? I mean,
That's such an excellent question. No, sorry. Do you have more there? That I didn't want to
no, take it
interrupt you.
away. Take it away.
No, I really like that question. I think that's something I ask myself a lot. And I think obviously I would never purport to be established in venture at this point, right? Because I'm learning. I'm always
Of
learning
course.
and developing my investment thesis. And a lot of what I do in the off season is, these networking calls where I just try to learn and getting reps on these decks and stuff like that. So it's about learning for me. And while I've started to develop, my investment thesis, I think it's kind of an interesting intersection in what you mentioned because I think what I get approached with a lot realistically, especially for angel investing, is really early stuff. You know, don't have a lot of
Hmm.
KPI KPIs,
Not a
right?
lot of revenue, maybe.
No, their revenues, they're no revenue, right? Like pre-revenue. Maybe have a product. Maybe don't even have a product, right? Have a vision. Have a team. Like I get approached with a lot of that stuff. Very very early. Maybe they haven't even found their market yet. So that's kind of where I see a lot, and so I've had to become better at diagnosing. Okay, teams, general just market, probably not even product market fit yet, but trying to look at that, trying to do market research. I've had to get more and more comfortable with trying to understand the earlier and earlier stages because it's a lot of the stuff I get. I'm not going to get just a easy Series B, right? Like, and I don't even have the necessarily capital to impact that. So I've had to become more and more comfortable looking at that.
Wow.
But I will say, practically, I really do like to have less gray area where I can try to actually evaluate companies and look at their revenue, look at projections, and have metrics where I feel comfortable investing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that's how I truly feel, and I'd like to be that investor, but also I don't always get those opportunities. So I've had to grow in my evaluations of earlier and earlier stage companies. So it's challenged me.
It's interesting. You're like on the other side where it's like I'm around incredible founders. Stanford essentially is kind of in the birthplace of venture capital, and you're tapped into the alumni network. It's like it's the opposite. You're getting involved in venture from the earliest stages, which more risky, but if you get one right, you might be all right.
Totally. And I think for me, it's just athletes have different perspective on venture. I got into this and started doing this because I was interested in it and I felt like it really intrigued me and I saw it as maybe a potential career path for when I'm done.
Yeah.
I think if you're using it solely as an investment to grow your money, people might want to come in a little bit later, do it a little bit differently, kind of like you talked about athletes. And also I think your platform matters. Like big time athletes have big platforms bigger than mine, and do a lot of promotion and pay promotion. So that's just a different ballpark. I mean, they can help those companies in different ways. They get equity. I don't even, it's investing in a way, but it's also different, right? And I don't do a ton of that. And that's interesting to me as well. But for me, it was like, hey, I want to learn about this. I want to see if I'm any good at it. And I want to see if it's something I want to do, beyond football. I don't want to be stuck when I'm done with football, and I want to have a plan. So that's kind of how I got into it, and I think that leads to looking at earlier and earlier stage stuff because those are the companies that are often interested in having you come aboard, um, in pitching to you, right? And it's also just yeah, that's just kind of the deal flow you get, I think. And it's great. I mean, I try to get, deal flow of, more established companies, but then sometimes, you're really, barely on the cap table, so it doesn't really matter. And that is still interesting to do from a networking perspective. From, I think, an investment perspective, it's probably even a little sounder, right? To invest alongside with the Andreessen Horowitzes of the world, but
Yeah.
it's different, and I think that maybe doesn't challenge me as much as trying to evaluate these companies that are, pre-revenue,
No,
seed, pre-seed.
when you were at Stanford, do you ever walk around or ever develop relationships with people in the dorms or kids where you're like, yeah, that guy's about to build a giant company. Like, I need to get to know him.
Oh man, there's so many, and so many of my former classmates are entrepreneurs and starting companies, and it's so cool to see. And I mean, the graduate school of business, I've invested with some people that went there, and I got to know during my time at Stanford, and it's just been like it's just such a great like entrepreneurial um, ecosystem. It's just it's the best in the world for a reason, and I love seeing my classmates do big things, and it's great for me to stay plugged in there because just there's so much innovation happening there, and it's just always so exciting.
No, no doubt. And some of your investments, right? You invested in a company called Hydro, Novella
Yep.
Pharmaceuticals. At the early stages, man, what are these founders, what qualities gave you
Mm.
that green light that were like, you know what, I'm going to write, these guys a check?
That's a great question. I would say first and foremost for me, it's developing a sense of familiarity. Like I want to get to know these people beyond whether they can make me money or not, because I think that's the wrong approach, right? And in both these cases, I mean, especially with Hydro, like and Novilla as well. I mean, I knew these founders for 6 months to a year before I invested, and I really got to know them. And it wasn't
Oh, you take your
they
time.
were just, yeah, I take my time. They weren't just hitting me up for money. Like I wanted to know like the quality of individual I was dealing with because like for me, what really matters in the founders, like, I mean, being a good person I can talk to, that matters. And that's not always everyone that runs successful companies, but that matters to me. I want to kind of get through some of the BS sometimes, and I think really getting to know the founders is
You want to
important.
skip the small talk like we do, like
Skip
we
the
talk
small
about.
talk, yeah, yeah, and also, but be able to small talk at the same time. Like it doesn't have to be strictly business, and
Yeah.
also I think being an athlete, like while I'm not currently an entrepreneur, something that I feel like I can see and I really respect is just how dogged you have to be as an entrepreneur.
How much of a
When you're
dog is that?
raising dogged,
Oh,
like how determined you have to be, how gritty, how much you have to deal with adversity constantly. It almost in a lot of ways seems similar to athletics with like maybe you constantly lose and you get a win, or you have to constantly reinvent yourself, develop your craft, you have to pivot. Like there's a lot of similarities between athletics and entrepreneurship, and that's what I look for in founders. I mean, it's my brother's a founder of a tech company, Ritual, a wellness platform, and he's done great things, and I have so much respect for him. But I mean, I've learned from him just the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, and just how much respect I have for founders, seeing all that they go through, and how challenging it is, and how you every day it's one day at a time, and you can't get too high or too low. And these are the lessons I've learned in sports, but I can see embodied in a lot of these founders. So it's important for me to get to know them. It's important for me to see how they deal with adversity and how they're going to stick with it because it's hard, and just like sports, it's challenges you at all times. So um, yeah, I mean, that building up that sense, getting to know them and then their team kind of next is really important to me, who they surround themselves with.
one of my favorite snippets is from Prasanna Sankar, who's a co-founder of Rippling, which is a $1 billion
Okay.
payroll company. Um, and Prasanna was just like, this entrepreneurship stuff, it's like athlete sport. Like, you think Michael Jordan cared
Hmm.
about work-life balance? Like, this is, it's for athletes.
It's
And
your
and
entire life. Yeah, you're building something, right? Yeah, it's
and it was coming from a non-athlete, like even the other side sees the correlation.
no, totally. And I think that's what draws me so much to it. It's just kind of like a mutual respect that you have for these entrepreneurs that they're putting everything on the line. It's win or lose, right? There's not really a middle ground, and it's just exciting to see, and that's why I have so much respect for founders.
Do you think you have an unfair advantage on evaluating companies being involved in the Stanford angel ecosystem?
No, I mean, I think you might get access or have some connections, and that's obviously very important. So maybe I'll retract the no. I think that's very important, but you got to put the work in, and you have to continue to learn and develop. Like I tell you what, like me being a pro athlete gives me certain advantages, maybe getting in the door, but it really has. I don't think there's in terms of like experience in venture and stuff like that, like there's things you lack, being a pro athlete, because your day job is very different from what someone who is an analyst at a venture fund does. But yeah, there's definitely benefits in being in that ecosystem, being from Stanford. But at the end of the day, I mean, you have to develop your own investment thesis, you have to test it out, and you have to just constantly work. And that's kind of what I'm slightly in the process of, now, and we'll try to hopefully continue doing going forward.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. It's still crazy how much the Stanford entrepreneurial ecosystem receives as a percentage of all the venture capital money being deployed uh,
Yeah.
in the world. I
Yeah.
mean, Stanford still gets a huge bulk of it.
No, totally. I mean, I think it's often a signal. This has worked before. There's a lot of big things coming out of Stanford, and I think that's a good thing, but sometimes can be a bad thing. Just because you went to Stanford, I think doesn't necessarily mean you're a better entrepreneur than someone else. It's definitely impressive and important, but that's not always the most important thing, right?
Yeah, for sure. And there's like and as an investor, like there's different investing styles. Like you hear a lot of founders say the best investors are the one who don't do shit and just like stay out of the way.
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
your ideal scenario, Casey, let's say we put football away for a sec. As you're
sure.
deploying money into companies, what is your perfect level of involvement? Are you the
Man, this
fallback
is an
guy, or do you
excellent
actually want to
question.
help the companies? Do you want to actually help companies build? What's ideal for you?
Sure. So I think you need to know yourself, know what you bring to the table, and that's important. And let's be honest, like in certain industries, especially when I look to invest, there's not a lot I can maybe do in terms of like advice or expertise in certain AI companies, right? Like I know myself, and I think that's something I have to keep in mind, because I think if you try to get too involved in a situation where you don't know anything, like just talking to founders, like that's just annoying, right? And you also need to know what type of check sizes you're putting in. Like if I'm not putting in multi-million dollar checks, which I don't do, I don't think that doesn't entitle you to have a lot of say in things and constantly be calling up founders and asking for progress. I think you need to know kind of what your involvement is. But for me, I want to be as helpful as I possibly can. I find at this stage of my career, especially playing professional football, I think I'm most helpful with sports tech, wellness, human optimization type companies. I think that's where I can provide, like Hydro, that's where I can provide the most insight. I have the most connections, I can make intros, stuff like that. So knowing yourself is really important, knowing, I think, your check size. And then for me, just as much help as I can provide, intros I can make, any advice I can give, probably depends on the company and industry, but that's being involved, but not being overbearing, I think is important, because the entrepreneur has enough going on. These founders are so busy, and every day they're fighting. So for me to be calling them up and constantly badgering them, just not a good relationship.
No, for sure, for sure. And I'm actually seeing a pattern with your portfolio. Blood flow is important to you, like in what's going on in below the skin, man. What's the insight there? Like, what is that for you that's resonating with you between like Novilla, Hydro? Like, what is that for you?
Honestly, I think as I've just invested more and more, I've just been like, these are the companies I feel very comfortable in, understanding the product, understanding the market, talking to experts about the science, talking to experts about the market, people that actually buy these things, athletic trainers, the strength coaches of, Division I universities. Like, okay, who is their market? Who are they targeting? And for these companies, I can talk to these people. I can be like, oh, this is your market. Okay, let me talk to 10 people there and see if this is something they would buy, see how they buy it, see if this proves out, see if your assumptions prove, right? So for me, it's started to become more of like, I'm getting deal flow in these areas, and I feel like I can value add, and I can add value and look more deeply into these type of companies. So yeah, like Novilla and Hydro. I mean, I think that's kind of coincidental that they're both kind of in the bloodstream in a way. But yeah, I think that just speaks to the value I'm trying to add, and the connections I have and how I'm trying to diligence.
No, absolutely. I'm actually seeing more in your experience training, always constantly improving your health and wellness. I do think
Yeah,
professional athletes have an unfair advantage and a really distinguished, credible source of opinion in sort of the health and wellness space, and in many cases.
absolutely.
There's actually, I forgot what investment firm this was. I'll have to come and bring it up later. But there's a firm that invests in consumer products that have been in professional athlete facilities that athletes love. Because the thought process is
Mm,
if athletes are using these new products, I think there's a percentage, and don't quote me here, but about a quarter, or if I was a quarter or one third of all the sort of consumer tech products that are in NFL facilities are actually around the seed stage. Like they're actually not like less
makes
legacy
sense.
tech. It's actually like new stuff. Okay, and so because
Yeah,
it's
yeah. There's a lot of new technology.
right, I'll like so when I think about Theragun, Cherry Bundy, the cherry recovery
Mm,
drinks. Even like
hmm.
Hydro is definitely in line with that. I'm not sure if that's
Yeah.
actually an NFL facility. So everything that is around the players' ecosystem, there's actually a fund that's like, okay, if the players like this, we actually think a giant consumer market may adopt it, and so that's our thesis.
I like that thesis. That's interesting. I'd like to know more about that thesis, because that's something I struggle with sometimes, and I'll speak on that in a second. But I do have to say, as an advisor to Hydro, we are in NFL locker rooms,
Okay.
Falcons, Commanders, hopefully soon to be the Bills. So they're growing, which is great. Have to shameless plug there.
No
But
doubt.
in terms of that thesis, I find that interesting because I think one of the things I've struggled with, and some advice I've gotten from some mentors in the space, um, I've struggled with, hey, I love this product, and I'm a recovery nut. I have all types of. You can ask my wife. I have all types of recovery tools and all these various gadgets and gizmos, and I'm obsessed with this stuff. And I, feel like that gives me insight into what works, and I'm, very skeptical of certain technologies, and I only use certain things, whatever. But at the same time, I almost feel like I have to check myself. I'm like, well, okay, am I the target for this? Like someone who's hyper fixated on recovery, right? Because that's not everyone. And I think that's what Normatech and like the Hyperice and
Yep.
these type of companies have done so well is that they've appealed to the average consumer, which is really where the market is, right? Because I don't think you're going to build, $1 billion company just selling to NFL teams, right?
No.
That's such a like limited subsection of the population.
Yeah, it's kind of just like
So that
your first test of the product almost.
totally, totally. And then I think that gives it validity, and then
Yes.
you can, I mean, obviously use that in marketing. It's like, hey, NFL players use this. But sometimes I think things are so specialized, and while it may work very well for, the NFL athlete, the average consumer might not trust it or be afraid of it or just might not need it. So that's a really interesting thesis. I'd like to know more about that, fund
Yeah, I have to.
and kind of their portfolio companies. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to go figure out which one that was. But no, that was pretty interesting. Do you have any stories? Have you intersected with some awesome entrepreneurs, and like what was that like for you? Outside of maybe your portfolio,
Uh,
you run across any really cool
yeah, I mean,
program?
yeah, I mean, there's been a lot. I would say I don't want to plug Hydro again here, but I think this is just a really good example because it was never, the initial plan was never to, um, I never reached out to them in terms of investing first. It was such an organic relationship that I thought was really interesting. So I started using their BFR shorts and just really love the product. I use it for the whole
Quads
season,
got
half of the
big.
season. Yeah, after the season, I was like, hey, like I talked to my strength coach. I was like, he was the one who found it. I was like, hey, I want to get free product. Like, can you put me in touch? I just want to see if I can get some free product. I love it. And so then, I mean, they were stoked. They were like, yeah, of course we'll send you free product, but can we also like talk to you? Like, we want to like improve our company. And I'm like, okay, interesting signal there. Like, great, sure. Like, I don't know how much I know, but I'm happy to help you. And then that just developed into just such an organic and great relationship, kind of like over a year, even before I invested. And I mean, just from day one, I could tell, how serious they were, how just established their team was. And I think that has a lot to do with the UK ecosystem, which is really interesting to me as well. And just how, I mean, every member of the team I interacted with, I loved, and they were just such genuine people. And that just really excited me. And I think that's only grown my love of, entrepreneurship and the venture space even more, just interacting with those people and being able to join as an advisor and invest in them. And I really did that because I got to know them so well and just really valued them as people and their experience and expertise.
Well, Casey, thank you so much for joining us, man. This has been another great episode of the Athletes and Assets podcast. I've been your host, Noah Lack, with Buffalo Bills defensive end Casey Toohill, chatting a little angel investing, chatting a little entrepreneurship, man. The Bills are crushing it right now. So, Casey, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck, man. And for those watching, please like, subscribe to the channel. Casey, thanks again, man.
Great. Thanks so much, Noah.